We're talking about playtesting. All right, Charles, so I finally got some feedback on our videos. Are you excited to hear what we have to improve on?
No.
Okay, well, too bad that's a part of the process. Okay, first thing, let's not talk over each other anymore. People saying that gets annoying really quick.
Yeah, but...
Second thing, finish complete thoughts.
Huh?
There's this one comment that somebody said, Frank, stop being mean to Charles. We decided to ignore that comment. It's not useful. And then the final thing is simple. Can you just be a little taller? Perfect. Welcome to What is Tabletop, where we listen to your feedback and we improve on it. My name's Frank Joseph Hall, and no, I will not be nicer to Charles. With me is Charles.
Hi, guys. I'm used to the mean stuff.
Yeah, that's the home environment he comes from. I'm kidding. I don't know.
You're actually not completely wrong, but we will get into that.
Yeah, we won't get into our childhood traumas on this, but if you want to watch We Promise We're Friends, we'll go into it.
Absolutely.
Anyway, we're going to be talking about play testing. So this is specifically for our designer friends out there.
Yes.
Some advice we have, because play testing is difficult. Didn't you say that there's someone in the Discord that shouted us out on this one?
Yeah, shout out to Melina, who suggested that, again, we have a lot of people who are developing their own tabletop games.
So many.
And she wanted to specifically say, hey, could you guys talk about this? I was like, you know what? That's a great topic. We haven't talked about it before. And it would, give some insight into what we go through with our current game.
Yeah, because Charles had his first playtest experience and he thought it was terrible, even though it was not.
It was informative, but I didn't like it.
Yeah, no, and that is what we're going to talk about.
Yeah,
absolutely. You are putting yourself out there for sure. And you could put yourself out there by commenting, and subscribing. Thank you for all of you who do that.
Join our Discord. Again, maybe you'll get a shout out.
Maybe you'll inspire us to do a video.
Yeah, absolutely. We love that stuff.
Yeah. So let's get into it. Play testing, feedback, why the heck you should do it, what even is it, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Charles is the man of the questions, so answer the questions with your question. Jeopardy the question, sir.
What is playtesting?
No, that's the answer to the question.
No, for the most part, everyone kind of knows what playtesting is, but just for those who are unfamiliar with the concept of playtesting, Frank, what is playtesting?
So ideally, this is something everyone should do. Ideally. So the idea is you just simply take your prototype game, give it to a bunch of people, and ask for feedback. It's a lot harder than that sounds because, one, you need to find people willing to playtest something that is not good. And mind you, when I say not good, I don't mean like your product is bad.
Yeah.
But usually
it's unpolished.
I have found people who are like, oh, this is so fun. I'm like, it is fun for you and your friends. Is it mass marketable? That's a completely different thing. So you have to see, hey, brand new group of people. You've never heard of this thing before. Will you like it? Is it good? And then what changes need to be made? And a lot of that is very difficult to be okay with.
Yeah, especially like if you have a vision for your game and then you get the feedback like that, especially something you didn't want to like even move on, and everyone's telling you that's not the thing they want in the game because it's not. Maybe it takes away fun, takes away something. It's just it can be hard to hear.
But that's what we're going to go over too. Is when can you actually understand that feedback and accept it, and when do you not need to listen to people? Because spoiler alert, sometimes people don't know what they want.
Like me. Very frequently.
Yeah, and just to give a little bit of context, so we are making our own RPG, so we've done some playtesting. And on top of that, I've done playtesting not just for other RPGs, but for board games as well. So I know what kind of feedback is needed. I know how to interpret feedback, which is a huge part of playtesting. And so that's kind of the credibility we have going into this when we're doing that.
When should you even consider playtesting?
Yeah, so you could hypothetically start playtesting as soon as you develop the first mechanic of the game. Now, obviously, playtesting tends to be more towards the mechanics of the game. It's not always true. For example, you could playtest a theme, like the overall genre of the game, to see if that's even marketable. Because let's say you decide on your theme and you're like, well, I want to be brand new. So like a lot of people have done horror, but have they done post-apocalyptic, cybernetic, enhanced angel, demon, fighting dragons on the back of saber-toothed tigers horror?
Anime has.
No, I don't think they've done that one yet.
It's on the docket.
But that's the thing. You might say, this is a really cool idea. Why doesn't everyone want to fight saber-toothed tigers on the back of flying dragons and horses? See, I've already made a mistake myself. If that is not even interesting to most people, you're going to have to go back to the drawing board.
That concept right there alone is too convoluted, too much stuff going on. I'd be like, pass.
Right, yeah. And again, this is a lot of stuff that hopefully you're understanding before you even playtest. You do not need to playtest the second you start, though you can. You can decide, hey, we've come up with a mechanic. Let's immediately playtest this. I think most like actual professional developers will do that. Now, caveat. Developers such as MCDM, right, who have years of design experience, they are smart. They do internal playtesting before they start allowing other people to playtest. And that's what's important. You need to playtest your game first.
Yes.
Because if you don't like it, why are you making the game?
Someone asked us, why are we, why aren't we giving it out to people right now? I'm like, because it's not polished enough. Like, because the game may change so much just between our group of friends and how we play. The idea of creating your game is that you need to create a game that you're going to want to play first and foremost. That's why you need to be okay with the idea. Yeah. And if you play it and you're like, this is not good, then you have to change it, because you don't want to put that out there and be like, well, yeah, I really didn't like it. And then people are like, then you're going to get feedback. Then why are you doing this?
Right. You might think like, oh, this is a completed game, and then you give it out to some people and they're gonna be like, that was it. Or vice versa. You might be like, oh, I don't know, I gotta make sure that everything's perfect, and arguably you don't. That's why, again, you have internal playtesting. So internal playtesting, ideally, if you're not basically being able to design as a living, like MCDM, they're great. If you are able to support their Patreon, they give you an insane amount of like behind the scenes stuff. Or you could check out our live streams where we also try to give you the behind the scenes of how we do stuff. But the idea is they are lucky enough to have about 5 people that can just play the game nonstop. And they will be like, this is a cool mechanic. We all agree it's a cool mechanic. And then as they're playing, they're like, we realize this is a problem and we need to cut it. That is internal playtesting. So ideally what you can do is find a play group. Hopefully it's the play group you already have, and maybe they'll be nice and give you 1 out of every month of their play sessions.
We're hoping that's still going to be the case. So.
That's kind of how we do it. Is we'll have our normal campaign for 3 weeks, and then that last week is our playtest session for our game. But we say, hey guys, this is in playtest. We're playtesting this thing, and you just do it. And you'll find that sometimes you'll be like, I'm coming up with something on the fly, and that's why you playtest, because in the moment you might be like, this is going to be a lot better than if we did it this other way. And so that's internal playtesting. Are you enjoying the video so far? Then you should check out our Patreon, where we have a bunch of additional stuff that you can enjoy.
We have a series called We're Promised We're Friends, because apparently people think we're not, because Frank is mean to me.
I am not mean to you, but we do talk about all various things, not just tabletop RPGs, a bunch of different stuff. We talk about, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? It's not.
I still concede that it is.
We also have the live streams from all of our design live streams. So if you want to watch them in full, not just the edited clip versions that we put out for free on YouTube, Patreon is also where you want to go.
And of course, there's higher tiers where you can help us design things like one-shots and maybe even play games with us.
And of course, if you're only wanting to watch the videos, you can become a YouTube member, and you'll get all the videos that are available on the Patreon as well. We got session zeros, we got upcoming one-shots, all the fun stuff, and you get to be a part of it. Join us on Patreon. Now back to the actual video. External playtesting is when you have decided, all right, now let's get some fresh eyes on it. Let's get some people who have not seen this thing before and get their immediate feedback. If you're lucky, again, you're like, MCDM, Wizards of the Coast, you can just release it and be like, tell us your feedback. And people will be like, oh, okay, yeah, here you go. Here's our feedback. And then you have to sift through it, but we'll get into that later.
If you don't have that core group of friends, another thing is playing online too. There's nothing wrong with doing it online, but I know I'd prefer to do it in person.
I would say that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Whether it's online or not. I think your internal playtesting should be the same people.
Yeah, I think, because you want to keep the feedback consistent.
Yes. And ultimately, you will start to understand the kind of people who are playtesting and what they look for. And that's going to be good, because that's really like a big factor that comes into playtesting. And
something important to remember, you're not going to make everyone happy. There's going to be mechanics that you're going to have or ideas you're going to have that you're going to love, and maybe 50 or 60% of the people might like it too, but we'll get into how much people should like it. Exactly. So, you're the designer too, so you make the final call with those things.
I mean, a great example is we have our playtest. And we were like, let's just get the core resolution down. We had an idea, we play tested it, and then we talked to our players, and they were like, well, here's something here, here's something there. We scrapped it, brought in a brand new thing, and that seemed to work a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
But we had one guy, Jeffrey, who was like, I don't like how little damage I'm doing. I'm like, well, 1, we're not done yet. 2, I actually kind of do like how little damage, because it's less to keep track of.
Yeah.
And so that's something to keep in mind again, right? If you have power gamers and they're upset that they can't power game, is that the intent? So I went to, in one of our live streams, I told Charles this. I'm like, what is the point of your game? And he was like, well, it's a horror. I'm like, no. What's the point of your game? Right?
I don't understand questions sometimes, I'll be honest.
Yeah, we talk about this in the core pillars video, but the idea of like, what is the genre? Like, what are your pillars? Like, what are you trying to do? If you're trying to have a combat focused game and you're too busy fighting over the like narrative mechanics, I'm going to argue that your time is being wasted at that moment, right? Not to say you can't have narrative mechanics in combat-focused games, but if the point is the combat and you're not fleshing that out, who cares? So it's the same in the inverse, right? If you're like, we have these mechanics that work narratively and we know we want this to work, right? Like a big thing we've talked about is we want non-combat characters to be as viable as combat characters.
Correct.
And so that means combat's not inherently as powerful. I can persuade someone as well as Charles can shoot a gun. And they both, in a sense, do the same thing of being able to whittle down the enemy from wanting to fight.
And it feeds into our mechanics as well. So like mechanically speaking, being persuasive is just as good as being good at weaponry. It just depends on how you whittle them down, because we don't have hit points. We have what's called resolve.
Start with a core group. Understand what they want. Understand what you want, because that's going to be a huge thing. And then be able to go from there.
Have the stuff that you want to playtest out first, because the reason I believe my first playtest didn't go well is because I was focusing on combat, even though that wasn't the idea for that first playtest. And that's where I dropped the ball at. So it was informative. It was very informative. Like I got my feedback. I'm like, okay, this makes sense. That's why I didn't like it, though, is because I did something I wasn't ready to do yet.
Yeah, so the idea was we ran a session, and I wanted Charles to GM because in my head, this is Charles's game. I'm just supporting him, even though he's like, no, it's both of our games, but whatever. I was like, okay, Charles is going to GM the way he thinks he wants someone to GM. And he was, again, and this is just the fact that you haven't GM'd as much as me.
You're correct.
It was harder for you to be able to, like, off the moment, figure stuff out, while also focusing on the game, while also focusing on your players.
Right. I'm better like coming off, as a player, doing stuff off the cuff. And that's something people don't talk about. It's GM versus player, like improv, going off the cuff type stuff. They're two very different things.
As a GM, you're so focused on so many other things. So like for me, it's a little easier because a lot of the more rudimentary stuff is second nature.
Correct.
So I can then also be like, oh, okay, that mechanic, I'm going to tweak it and do this instead.
Right.
We're having me GM at the moment, but I'm still going to have you GM because I think it's good that you know how to play your own game.
Yeah, 100%. I want to, again, I'll get to the point where I will be able to do it too. We're just, again, it's one of those things where we're playtesting, we're figuring things out. We have the core game figured out. I'll feel more comfortable, I think, doing that. But we're still not quite there yet. We're still talking about like feats and abilities that even apparently I'm off on this one too a little bit.
I didn't say you're off. I just said you didn't answer the question I asked.
So it's a lack of familiarity. And like I said, Frank has this stuff, or like Frank had said, this is second nature for him. To me, I'm learning still. You could be playing this stuff for like 10 years, I think. You could be a player of 10 years and still not know enough about this stuff.
Yeah.
So you have to have an interest in it too.
You said you have enough to play test that you're wanting to play test. I think we've talked about this, and I know it's one of the questions. Should you tell your players what you're looking for? And the answer is 100% yes. You need to say up front, here are the guidelines. So let me just give you some of the guidelines we use for our playtest. We'll say, hey guys, here is the game. Here are the changes that have been made since we played the game. We're looking for your feedback. Now, I'm of the opinion that sometimes the best way to find feedback is to not tell them what you're looking for. Like we introduced the resolve mechanic, which is our hit points basically. And I was like, I'm not going to tell them, I want to know how this works. Inherently, they know we changed it, so we're going to kind of try to figure things out. So some players are going to make choices that they normally wouldn't make because they want to test out the mechanic. And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. But you need to state up front, like, what changes have you made? Maybe what you're wanting to focus that game. Like, you're deciding, hey, guys, I really want to focus on the flow of combat. Yeah. Is it flowing the way I want it to? So we're going to go into a combat session immediately and practice that. Big thing, if you're wanting to playtest something, make sure you're able to playtest that thing. So if you're going to focus on combat and you don't have a combat because you're like, well, the story didn't go there, just have them start in combat.
Absolutely. And that was kind of the issue we had with the first, my first.
Yeah, you were trying to force
combat that we weren't like, it wasn't about combat. And I'm like, oh, but I just wanted to see where it was going to go. And then the combat just went awry. So.
Right. I highly recommend having this rule in place. You look at the players and say, the only person who is allowed to make a change in the moment is me. And I usually say me or Charles, because it's good to have a player perspective who's also making the game to be like, this is not flowing the way I want to. We need to make this change now.
Yeah.
But ultimately, tell the players, like, if you have a thought, write it down and we will come back to it. Because the last thing you want to do is to have a playtest session. You get 20 minutes in and then someone's like, well, I don't know how I feel about this mechanic. And then you stop the gameplay and you're like, okay, well, let's talk about it. When it's quite possible, if you had just continued on, issue might have been alleviated. It might have been resolved in a completely different way. You don't want to stop, pause, do the thing, because now you're also playtesting less of your game.
Yeah. Like Frank said, you need to have them write that down and then keep going. Because again, it may just be a lack of familiarity with it, that they didn't like it. And then as play goes on, they're like, oh, actually this is not so bad.
Right.
Because again, familiarity is one of those things. That's why I think D&D does so well, is because it's recognized and people are familiar with it. And it's genuinely, as a player, really easy to kind of get into, I think, in my mind, if you have a mindset to play a TTRPG.
It's also good because if that comment is truly important, they will remember it.
Right.
Now, I told our players, write it down. And some of them don't write it down. And if they forget, it's like, okay, then it wasn't that important.
Right.
Like, whatever you were going to say was not clearly that important because you don't remember it. But sometimes it is. And so like when the first playtest session we had, everyone was like, I don't like how easy it is to succeed was one of the comments we got.
Yeah.
But then simultaneously I said, well, how would you feel about a 50% success rate? And they're like, that is too low.
Yeah. And I get that too. And actually for me, it's funnily enough, I'm like 50% seems pretty good to me, but because Frank had to explain this to me, I look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. We do succeed a lot more often than we fail.
If you look at 5th edition, they want you to succeed 65 to 70% of the time.
Yeah. Which, because about a third of the time you failing feels right.
And what's interesting is, so we made the change to the resolution mechanic, and the changes we made them, even though arguably nothing changed in some ways. But because we were able to explain it better, or possibly because they got used to it, it felt better. Right. So by having it, you can fail or give the GM a resource. That was like, oh, okay, well, now I'm succeeding a little bit more. And then we also got rid of some old mechanics of resource management, changed it a little bit more to where it's a lot more crunchy and fine-tuned. And so that helped a lot. But that brings us, I guess, into our next point of understanding feedback.
Yes.
Right. Because that is, I think, where a lot of people have difficulty. So, Charles, how much feedback should you implement once someone has told you some feedback?
I would say only a little bit at a time. You don't want to implement everything at once because then your entire game may change based on that. So if someone gives you a piece of feedback, say 3 players, they each give you a piece of feedback. Do one piece of feedback at a time. Okay, we're going to focus on this time and see how it goes. If this seemed to be better, we'll go from there. And if it doesn't, it's okay, we're going to keep we're going to keep this for now. The previous way was just better. We're going to keep this for now, but we will put this maybe on the back burner, then go back to another piece of feedback. Or, I don't know, maybe you should finish the feedback before you...
I would say the best way to have feedback happen is say, all right, guys, how did you feel? So this is important. So I got to do some playtesting for board games with my friend, future award-winning board game designer, Pedro P. Mendoza. I will keep saying that until he actually wins a board game. And the board game award. He wins a board game. Until he wins an award, and then I could just call him award-winning board game designer Pedro P. Mendoza. But the idea is, so many times people are going to tell you oh, well, this is broken and this is bad and you need to balance this better. Those people don't have the full understanding because they shouldn't. They're playtesting it. They're only getting a little bit. So people who are going to say this is not balanced or this is balanced, but it's not. That's not always the case. And as we explained, right? People are like, I want there to be a chance of failure. It's cool, but you statistically don't want it to be too high. These are the things you got to balance. So when you're getting feedback, ask them how they felt about things. Because feelings, ironically, in this situation are better than, did you think this mechanic was balanced? Because people will argue to death. You will see this by the sheer fact of how D&D does their playtest material. People argue to death whether something is balanced or not.
Right.
And are they right? Are they not? I don't know. And that's the problem. So instead, ask, well, how did you feel about combat? Did you feel like it flowed well? It's I felt like I was waiting too long for my turn. Make a note of that and move on. I think a really important thing too, especially if you're taking feedback from people who are not in your internal play group,
right,
is take the feedback and do not defend anything. That is a very difficult thing to do. because it's your baby. You just made this thing, and you're like, people are ripping it apart, and you're like, but I want to defend it. Don't do that. There is the Dungeon Coach did a video where he got a bunch of the YouTubers to play in his game, and then he's like, we had a discussion afterwards, and they gave me feedback, and in it he's defending like, okay, well, what about this and this and this and this, and it's completely understandable why he did that in that form, because it's a YouTube video, you want a back and forth.
Yes,
but watching it does come across like he is being too defensive, and he's like, your feedback is warranted, but I'm not going to listen to it. And you do not want your people who are taking the time to playtest your thing to feel like, I didn't listen to your opinion.
Don't get super, offended by what people think. Again, it is still your game. Listen to their feedback, and then again, maybe, and if enough, I would say if enough playtesters have that same kind of complaint or feedback. Definitely take that into consideration, because you don't want to ignore it. Because if you ignore it, then again, like, what's the point of having these people playtest if you're going to ignore what they have to say? The reason you're having them playtest is to see if your game has got any legs to stand on.
Yeah, so like, I know in one example, I heard someone say like, I felt like there were too many choices. What you should do is just write it down and come back to it. And then what you can do is you can look over feedback and be like, oh, okay, what do you mean by there's too many choices? Oh, they got choice paralysis. And so because this thing has 15 different options you can do in combat, sure, it's great that you get to do all these different options. But is that really good if then everyone's looking and like, oh, I forgot about this thing and this thing and that thing and this thing. Maybe that's not the way you want it to go. And so that's something to keep in mind. The hardest part about feedback, in my opinion, is not just the not defending it part. It's the analyzing what people wrote. So we actually have some examples. I got it right here. Some feedback from one of our playtests, and so we're going to talk about that. Again, you can watch our live streams, and we go into way more detail about this stuff.
And we will do more live streams, hopefully, in the next coming months. So.
Yeah. We just didn't do it for July because July is busy for us, but we will definitely have one in August for sure, which is now. Now is August, which is weird to think that. Time is weird.
For pre-recorded stuff, time is weird.
So, for example, Zach said there were too many resources. We need to limit resource use, and I failed a lot and negated it because it felt bad. I listened to that comment and knew I agree. We had too many resources because that was the point. We were just like, we don't want to keep track of resources. We're just going to give you an infinite amount just to see if the use of resources is good or not. Because we had the idea of how we're using resources. You can watch our resource management video on that one. And so that was in the back of our heads. But like the whole idea of like, there's too many resources. In my head, I'm like, well, okay, yes, you're right. And I agree. That's not the point of what we were trying to do.
Correct.
So that's fine. Evan said the same thing. Failure is nice. Failure is mitigated too much, right? And again, that's another thing we talked about is, okay, the way we were using resources maybe was the problem of like, well, we wanted these resources to be able to be used to mitigate successes. Oh, but now that we're looking into it, the way it's used is you just spend as many as you want to get to the success. That's not as fun as like, oh, I was so close to a success. Oh, but I could use this resource. All right, I'm going to use it and get the success.
Right.
That's a little bit different than, oh, I failed, but I will just spend 5 to succeed.
Yeah.
That's not as fun. They were telling us like, I liked when this or this happened. And what in actuality we were getting is like, okay, maybe not every resource should be used to mitigate failure. Maybe only one should. Maybe there's different ways to mitigate failure that are going to feel more fun. And that's how we came up with the, 1 adds a +1. Like it's a solid, you increase the number by 1, and 1 is a re-roll the dice and hope that you get a higher number.
Our play testing and with this feedback, we wanted to see where resources were going. Right. So that was the whole intent so that's why we weren't keeping track of it. We wanted to see where it was going to go. And then, so when they came back with that feedback, it was less like, oh, it wasn't like, hurting my pride or anything. I'm like, okay, no, that makes sense because that's not what I wanted, but we needed to see how it was going to be used, especially if it could be used liberally. We knew that's not how the game was going to end up because we know our players pretty well too, so we knew they weren't going to like it either. But it's nice to see it in play.
This brings us to probably one of the harder bits of advice, especially if you're not used to it. And this is a bit of advice every creative has to know about. It's called kill your darlings. They call it killing your baby, monkey, whatever it is. The idea is you might have this really cool thing. And it's really cool to you, and you came up with it, and you're like, this is amazing. This is the best mechanic ever made. And you're forcing it into your design, and it doesn't work. You have to be content with saying, well, all that time is wasted. And it sucks, and it's tough, and it's not fun to be like, I put all of this effort into this thing, and it's not going to be used. Yeah. But I will say, one, most likely if you're a designer, you have 15 other projects you're going to eventually work on. You take it, and you use it for something else. Like, just put it, like, make a note of it, put it in your folder for later, and then just keep working on the design.
Some people might be like, oh, well, you just spent all the time. Like, yeah, I spent time on it, but, at least I have an idea for something else too. Like, this is maybe something I can come back to later. So maybe I didn't understand the question, but maybe this is a question for a later time too.
Right.
So like, I don't feel like I waste any time because any effort I put into the game, I feel is worth it. Even if I spent hours on something that we're not going to use. Oh, well.
Yeah.
That's just my attitude.
And again, no, I think that's good to have that mentality of like, yeah, I spent all this time and now I got to get rid of it. But again, you've practiced the skill of making a new mechanic.
Right.
And now you can take that and just use it on something else. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's important. I kind of told Charles because when we first started, before we even had a resolution mechanic, like, how are we going to roll the dice? He was like, oh, and I have this feat and this feat and this feat. And I'm like, this dude, we haven't even determined how the game runs yet. And you're like, I want this feat and this feat. And that's something I think you got to be careful on, but that's not necessarily playtest.
So, and I'm going to tell you right now too, like, I understand where he's coming from as well. If, for me as a person, and this may be the first time Frank is hearing this, I don't care that I've come up with all this list. If they're not relevant now, that's fine. We'll look at them later. If they're not relevant at all, we won't look at them at all. That's fine. It's just, no matter what it is, whether it's relevant or not, I've got to get ideas out. I write poetry that way. I write stories that way. That's how my mind works. If I don't get it out, I'll either forget about it or I'll come back to it like 10 years later. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. So another question is, how often should you play test?
Yes. As much as you can. Genuinely, as much as you can.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, your play group will be able to let you play it. I think even Peter from Tales with Elsewhere, they do every other week. And it's his group's like, we'll play D&D and then we'll help Peter play his game.
Right.
And you can tell Peter's like super thankful for that. Obviously, I would also be very thankful for that. So yeah, as much as you can, if you're fortunate enough to become a part of a community like ours, you can put in that you're looking for games and maybe even you're looking for a group to do a long-term campaign. Be cautious of how long-term that campaign is because most campaigns tend to end pretty quickly. So I would say a long-term campaign in playtesting, 6 months. But
yeah. And then I think the last question we really got is, who should your player base be? Like, who should you be looking at? Who should you be looking at to play test your game, if not your immediate group?
I think once you've opened it up from an internal playtesting to external, cast a wide net because you might not know who actually will enjoy your game, right? Peter's talked about how he made his game and he's happy that there's the narrative people who enjoy it and they run it a different way than the more tactically minded folks. You might have a group of people who are like, oh, this is exactly what I was looking for. Those people will become your greatest source of feedback because that is your basically now marketing fan base. That is the group you want to go to and be like, all right, you guys really enjoyed it. You're willing to buy this game. Cool. Let me get some more feedback from you. Let me play test some more. And obviously, if they like it, they're going to be willing to play test some more and stuff like that. You do want to also get play test feedback from people who are not inherently going to like it, or maybe they're like skeptical.
Right.
If you're lucky, you convert them and now you have a new fan. And if not, then again, you look at their feedback, take it with some grains of salt. Because if you're making a narrative focused game and someone's like, I didn't like that I couldn't roll 15,000 dice to do damage. It's like, well, that's not a fair, or like, that's not a point I want to land it on, and we're just gonna move on.
I think the big thing too, the best questions I think to ask your players, and Frank's mentioned this earlier, was how does it feel? Because a lot of tabletop games, even with the mechanics, it's all about how it felt to play. Did you enjoy it? Because if it's not enjoyable, it doesn't matter what again, you could have the best mechanic in the world, you could have the best narrative in the world. If people are not enjoying it, they're not going to want to play your game.
Yeah, and I think most people will not inherently pick up on like the nuances of game mechanics. I mean, like we played Daggerheart, and I was like, oh wow, I really like how this works and this and that, and you guys were like, that was fun.
Well, exactly, and I think you have those two types of people, and I'm like, and that's what it should be. It was fun for you because you like the nuances, and it was fun for us because it just felt good.
Ultimately, that's the amount of feedback. We would usually give a little list of like all the things, but there's a lot that we covered in regards to playtesting. And again, if you want to playtest, we have a looking for games section. Feel free to join our Discord. Post in there like, hey guys, I'm looking for games. And then maybe someone will run it. Maybe other people will hop in and then you can get some feedback on that. And maybe it'll be me and or Charles.
Played Mouse Guard the other day for the first time with, was it Travis? Yeah. And that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And Chris. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it very much.
Travis wants to do basically the game that made Fabula Ultima.
The Ruatama or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. He wants to do that, and I was like, oh man, I'm super interested. Maybe. But
so, yeah.
Join our Discord. find some like-minded people, and then get the feedback that way.
Yeah. Again, shout out to Belina for the idea, because I think this is a great topic, and because of who because of you guys, because of who our audience is, I think this was probably a pretty good thing to go over with you guys.
Or you'll tell us in the comments how bad it was.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how I still talked over Frank, and how I still couldn't finish a sentence. I'm sorry. I stammer and stumble over my words.
Yeah. Stay witty. We'll read your feedback. So we're gonna ignore all that feedback, right?
Stay witty. Yeah.
Every single bit.
Oh yeah. I don't.
All of
That's
it.
just dumb.
I hate it.
Yeah. Our players are stupid.
Wow.